My friends, my friends, my friends, this is not the penultimate, it is the ultimate show of the Dennis Prager Show. Tomorrow is a best of. Best ofs are always worth listening to. I get as much mail from the best ofs as I do from the regular live show. So I hope you will tune in. But we give everybody off for December 31st. And are we off on Monday as well?
Yeah.
Wow. What am I going to do with all that time? Probably write another chapter on the book of Numbers. Fourth book of the Bible. That's what I'll be doing probably. The ultimate show, my friends. It is the day on which I thank Scott McConnell. There it is again. See? Unexpected and victim. I'm telling you, what is with me and Mr. Dreesen, sir? Tom Dreesen. Dreesen. Me and names. It's a lifelong crusade. It's fruitless. Anyway, I love that. I love when my eyes are opened to something that was staring at me all of my life, and I didn't know what makes for humor, surprise, and victim. And there it was, calling Sean Scott. He is Scott, correct? You're from Scottish background. Okay, my friends. So I have two agendas for today, being the last show of the year. A year that is sort of undoes the rule. What is it? Time flies when you're having a good time. A lot of Americans didn't have a good time this year, and yet time flew. I can't explain it, actually, to be honest. 2021 is over. Maybe 2022 will bring a change in both houses of Congress. The damage done, just the obvious. We were energy independent until the Democrats won. Don't even say Joe Biden. Joe Biden's irrelevant. Any Democrat would have ruined the energy autonomy of the United States, because the fanatics of the environmentalist movement dictate policy. Do you realize you're raised in the West to think that fanatics are almost all religious, right? Religious fanatic. It's never used. Fanatic is never used for any other group. I posed this question much of my life, but I haven't posed it on the show for a while. Why isn't the term secular fanatic ever used? Never, right? You can be too religious, but you can't be too irreligious. Not possible. It's like being too rich or too thin, as the old saw goes. But you can be too thin. That we all acknowledge. Too rich? It's an interesting question. I think you can be too rich, to be honest. I think it presents the billionaires with a lot of interesting questions about life. Anyway, that's not an important subject. Can you be too rich? It's an interesting subject, but I'm not going to dwell on it. But we only think of religious fanatics. In the United States of America, there are far more secular fanatics than religious fanatics. The entire environmentalist movement is composed of fanatics. Truly fanatics. And what is the fanatic? For whom nothing else matters. And for the environmentalists, only the environment as they understand it matters. So if in Germany you crush the ability of the middle class, not to mention the poorer class, to pay for their energy, so what? So what? We're saving the planet. I live in California. Oh, drought. We're doomed. We're just doomed. And because of global warming, we're doomed. We're going to have to ration water in California. In just the last month, we have had so much snowfall that it has essentially undone the drought. It's a record snowfall. Well, climate change, that's the beauty of the term. Oh, record snowfall, more water than ever. It's a climate change. Virtually all fanaticism in this country is of the left and is secular. The human being is predisposed to fanaticism. Moderation is an extremely, extremely rare thing among the masses, let's put it that way. It fills life with meaning to be a fanatic. And anybody who compromises is a heretic. If you believe in nuclear power, you're a heretic. You know my motto as I reflect on life this last show, and then take your calls on whatever you would like. That's what I'm opening the lines as if it were the Friday third hour. You want to reflect on the year, you want to ask me something, 1-8-PRAGER-776. Don't be insulted if I don't take your call. Not every call is one that I would want to take for any a host of reasons. What we have seen this year is a true fanaticism. The heretic. I spoke in my synagogue last Saturday. I speak every Saturday. After the Torah is read is the time normally reserved for the rabbinic sermon. I'm not a rabbi, but I have the role of one, but I'm not ordained, which worked out fine with me. I'm happy to be a mister. I spoke about the outlier. All good in history has been done by the outlier. And I have never realized that as much as I have in the United States of America in the last 2 years. It's not all outliers are good. Some outliers are evil. But goodness is not done tragically by the herd, by the masses. Goodness is achieved by the people, the individuals who are prepared to say that they are prepared to be hated. Right now, among the many, many changes in my life in the last 2 years, and it's startling to me that I've had them, I really thought I understood a lot about life, and I did. But even more now. Now I want you to know when somebody says something, unless it's factually, obviously incorrect, but something that the establishment, if in any field, finds heretical, I take the person seriously. This is not what I did in the past. Any subject, especially in the medical field, the corruption of the medical institutions that I have seen in the last year and a half, 2 years, has been mind-boggling. The medical establishment essentially was wrong in every way. I'll go back a moment to Germany, getting people, they have a word, I don't know the German word, energy poverty or energy poor. So I have a statement, one of my guidelines in life: Germany is always wrong. I was thinking about this in light of the Germans have almost a monopoly on the greatest music ever written. I mean, it's an astonishing that one group has produced. I mean, think about it. Bach, Beethoven, Schubert, Schumann, Handel. Who did I forget of the greats? Oh, Haydn. Oh my God, my beloved Haydn. I mean, who is missing from the German list? Tchaikovsky, and who is a great, I admit, but it's amazing. And on technology, if I see something is made in Germany, I just buy it. I know it will be superb. But on wisdom, there are no more nuclear reactors in Germany because Angela Merkel is afraid of nuclear power. Back in a moment.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. China has built the largest DNA database in the world, and it's only growing. This should concern all of us. That's because China could use this information in the future, perhaps, for example, to build bioweapons targeting specific ethnic groups. Given this background, common sense dictates that Americans shouldn't be storing their DNA or other personal information with Chinese-linked firms. Quite sensibly, after getting an FBI briefing about the firm's connections to China, the Los Angeles County Sheriff notified the county that his office wouldn't work with Fulgent. That's the genetics firm LA County hired for mandatory COVID testing and registration. Fulgent even admits in a public disclaimer it stores information outside the United States, where data privacy protections may not be as secure. I'll bet. What's alarming is how many others have chosen to work with Fulgent. The question is why.
Publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
If he was disappointed, and to explain why he was not able to sell a member of his own party, Joe Manchin, on the idea of Build Back Better, why this was not important for the American people. In cut number 9, Biden says, hey, it's not over yet. He seemed optimistic that there was still hope that he could bring Joe Manchin around. Cut number 9.
You've met with Senator Joe Manchin a number of times. You invited him to your home in Delaware. He came to the White House a week ago. Then he's on Sunday morning cable and says, I'm a no. How does that happen? How are you not able to close the deal?
Well, look, let's talk about what we have done. We have passed more major legislation than anybody in their first year ever. Now, I haven't given up on this. I haven't given up on it.
But Senator Manchin's main sticking point, it would appear, is the child tax credit. Are you willing to take that out if it means bringing him on board?
Well, look, I want to get as much as I can possibly get done. As much as we can possibly get done. I still think we'll be able to get a significant amount of what we need to get done. Particularly as the American people figure out what is in this legislation.
Well, isn't that part of the problem? That the American people kind of know what's in this 2,000-page spending bill? Isn't that the problem, Mr. President? We do know what's in there. That's why we do not support it. That's why your approval rating hit an all-time low this week, around 41%. The American people know what's in that spending plan, and they simply don't want it. Joe Manchin knows that the people of West Virginia can't afford what you're trying to sell.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Well, for the final time in 2021, I remind you that the odds of the mortgage rates being as low next December 30th as they are this December 30th are quite remote. In the most staggering acts of irresponsibility, the Democrats and the Republicans did too, but the Democrats more so, print money like it's monopoly money. I strongly advise you to contact Andrew and Todd at Sierra Pacific Mortgage, andrewandtodd.com. These guys are competent, honest. They will give you a mortgage checkup for free. You let them know what your status is. They may well say, hey, we can't really do better for you. Have a great new year. Or they may say, we can. So whatever it is, a refinance, a new house, reverse mortgage, contact these guys and say Happy New Year. AndrewandTodd.com at Sierra Pacific Mortgage, and that's 888-1172. 888-1172. So whatever is on your mind, my friends, that's the question. Yesterday's first hour was on these monsters, these 16-year-old monsters who, for kicks, planned and kidnapped their Spanish teacher, high school, and beat her to death. Isn't that exciting? Reminds me of the Nazi phrase, we're never so alive as when we kill. I guess that's the truth for these kids. God, if the parents are decent, the suffering, I mean, what it does to your life when your child dies, I mean, it's so, for some it's so, well, for all, it's just such a trauma. But imagine your son murders. Imagine that. You know, I actually did an hour. I won't do it now because I did it and nothing's changed. I actually did an hour many years ago. What frightens you more, that your child dies or that your child murders? And it was unanimous, the thought of your child being a murderer. For thrills? Apparently that is the motive here. On the issue that I'm preoccupied with, the consequences of the death of God, the Bible, death of the Bible in Western society, I fully acknowledge I would be surprised if these kids attended a traditional Catholic, Protestant, Mormon, or Jewish school. Wouldn't you? I think for most people, that's why my preoccupation is with the Ten Commandments. As I always say, or not always, because I've really only begun in the last year. As I always say in the last year, you want to defund the police? Have everybody observe the Ten Commandments. Then you can defund the police. Correct? When there were riots and looting in Los Angeles in the 1990s, I don't remember which year it was. What year was it? Do you remember? 92? Something like that. Anyway, I remember how strongly I wanted, because I lived near the riots. You could smell smoke in my house from fires set. That's how close I was to the riots. I was escorted to my previous station in L.A. I was not national yet. I became national in the late 90s. So I was only on in L.A. And I was escorted to my station by police because the station was so close to the riots. And I remember thinking, I want to go to the riots with a sign, "Thou shalt not steal." And that would have been a remarkable thing to do. I wonder what, how I just would have been regarded as a kook. See, the people burning and looting, they were not kooks. A guy with a sign, "Thou shalt not steal," that's a kook. You can tell a lot about a society by whom it deems kooky. 1-8 Prager 776. Can't be too secular, right? No such thing as a secular fanatic. The world is coming to an end through global warming, so therefore we have to destroy economies as they exist. Deprive the poor of the world of the fossil fuel that made the West so affluent. We don't want to do that for poor people. Let them do worse and cook and heat indoors with fire. That's better. And we won't even allow nuclear energy. Is the environmentalist movement opposed to nuclear energy because they're fanatics, or because, like every leftist, they live in fear? Reflecting on these past 2 years and this last year, that has become one of the great lessons of my life. The power of fear. Most people are animated more by fear than by love, or hate even. But fear always leads to hate, always. Unless you're fearing a comet hitting the earth, you're fearing people. The unvaccinated are to be feared, with what apparently has become known to everybody as a relatively useless vaccine. It's not a vaccine. You're not vaccinated against COVID. You can say it reduces the severity of the illness. I'm prepared to believe that. But it's not a vaccine as we have always known a vaccine to be. Israel's up to a second booster. You're going to get 4 shots in a year? I'm sorry?
No, you're...
The hatred for the unvaccinated. It finally happened, by the way. It did happen in our building yesterday. I walked into an elevator. I refuse to wear a mask. I've had COVID. I am the safest guy in the building. I walked in, and this masked guy walked right out the second I walked in. Well, what could I do? All I could say is I have contempt for him. I'm not angry. I wasn't hurt. I have contempt. That a masked man who's probably vaccinated fears an unmasked man? That's sick.
Streaming on Salem Now.
There's about 57 Muslim states in the world. There's one Jewish state.
The massive ingathering of Jews in the last 150 years back to the land is absolutely unprecedented.
They say that there's no greater sign of redemption coming than the Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
As a Christian, I've always supported Israel's claim to the Holy Land. To me, the Palestinians were just getting in the way of God's plan.
300,000 Palestinians are unemployed.
In spite of all the years of conflict, there's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
The public would be outraged if they knew the truth.
Why do you think our politicians are not on the sidewalk right now talking to you?
Don't have no respect.
The old wall randomly turns into a guardrail, followed by miles of open border.
human trafficking gone.
That journey is extremely dangerous.
The 7-year-old girl died in the desert.
From the country of India.
A great pillar of the community was killed by a man who had been deported at least twice.
This little urn contains the ashes of my son. His dreams cut short forever.
We're so worried about other countries' problems, and we don't even focus on our own.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Judge Thomas, you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. I was under constant attack. You're not really black because you're not doing what we expect black people to do. This is the wrong black guy. He has to be destroyed.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Last show of the year for Dennis Prager. Tomorrow's a show, but this is the last live one. Tomorrow's the best of. You'll love it. I would say half the time my shows are repeatable 10 years later with the same relevance. Because I talk about timeless issues. Even when I talk about, like yesterday, I talked about the two monsters. And if these 16-year-olds that beat their teacher to death as a form of personal excitement, if they don't qualify for the appellation monster, then there is no such thing. And then, as I told you yesterday, their son and daughter, the son and daughter of the murdered woman announced immediately that they forgive the murderers of their mother and send them love. And let me just say this to my two boys. If somebody murders me, I would ask you not to forgive them and don't send them love. Is that fair? I would think something had gone awry. We discussed that yesterday, and then it was asked, well, why would I even comment on it? Because they commented on it. They sent out their forgiveness publicly. You can see my column in the Wall Street Journal from what, 95 was it? 1995? 1997. The Wall Street Journal has articles going way back. Just type in Wall Street Journal Prager forgiveness. every word I wrote, I read half the article out loud. Every word I wrote that's 24 years ago I could have written today. I just would, because it was about the same thing. A kid in a school murdering other kids and other kids putting out signs, "We forgive you," whatever the guy's name was. I would, if I had to put out a biblical sign, it would be my favorite line in the Bible: "Those of you who love God must hate evil." It's a commandment. We don't have a command form in English, so there's no direct way to put it. But Hebrew has a command form in the verb, and the word hate is a commandment. It is a divine or biblical, your choice, commandment to hate evil. But not the evil doer. While I don't happen to share that view. What am I supposed to do? Love the evildoer? Doesn't that render love independent of morality? What is there that's good, that's independent of morality? All right, let's see what you folks have to say. What a nice call in Minneapolis. Jeffrey, how you doing there?
Hi, Mr. Prager. Can you hear me?
So clearly that you're probably on Skype.
Oh, great. Thank you. First, I just want to say thank you. You've had a pretty profound and positive impact on me since around 2005 or 2006. So thank you for all you do.
That means a lot to me. That's all I want to do. Thank you.
So, unfortunately, I've made the decision to leave Minneapolis. I'm going to be moving in the next 3 or 4 months. The riots last summer had a profound impact on me.
Mm-hmm.
I actually live on the border of Minneapolis and Uptown. I rode my bike into Uptown, which was sort of the epicenter of the riots last year, on the 5th day, and the fires were still going. Some of them smoke billowing from the buildings. I could see people literally walking in and out of stores, looting them. I could go on and on, to be honest. And I'm sure many callers, or many of the listeners know the details, but basically I've made the decision to leave the city, and I'll be moving out of state here coming up shortly.
Where are you going to move?
Actually, North or South Carolina. I've been visiting there.
That's a great
several times
idea.
over the last. Yes, yeah, it's wonderful. Yep.
Well, I think it's a wise decision. Minneapolis changed any decent human being's view of what is happening in this country. I'll talk about that more. In the meantime, yes, indeed, I took my relief factor today. My workout caused my muscle pain to reoccur. And I took it. And if you have an ongoing muscle or joint pain, this is an incredibly effective product. If it doesn't work in 30 days, this is what the makers of the product say. It probably won't work. So here's the deal. Try it for 30 days. For $20. Doesn't help you? Cancel your order. ReliefFactor.com, 800-500-8384.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
America, if anybody wants it. But the answer is, yeah, I wish I had thought about ordering 500 million pills 2 months ago before COVID hit here.
But we're nearly 2 years into this pandemic. You're a year into the presidency. Empty shelves and no test kits in some places, 3 days before Christmas when it's so important. Is that good enough?
No, nothing's been good enough. But look where we are. When last Christmas we were in a situation where we had significantly fewer people vaccinated. Emergency rooms were filled.
Well, Mr. President, yes, I would have to agree with you on that. For once, there's something you and I agree on. Nothing has been good enough.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. China has built the largest DNA database in the world, and it's only growing. This should concern all of us. That's because China could use this information in the future, perhaps, for example, to build bioweapons targeting specific ethnic groups. Given this background, common sense dictates that Americans shouldn't be storing their DNA or other personal information with Chinese-linked firms. Quite sensibly, after getting an FBI briefing about the firm's connections to China, the Los Angeles County Sheriff notified the county that his office wouldn't work with Fulgent. That's the genetics firm LA County hired for mandatory COVID testing and registration. Fulgent even admits in a public disclaimer it stores information outside the United States, where data privacy protections may not be as secure. I'll bet. What's alarming is how many others have chosen to work with Fulgent. The question is why.
Publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu.
You called your son. You personally promised him you would be here.
Lucas, I don't know how to help you.
Your daddy loves you. You gotta know it, pal.
Do you feel the love?
Prayer is a powerful thing, Ethan. It really does work, if you believe.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
The 2020 riots, in most cases, nothing done by the authorities to stop them because they're Democrats and they live in fear like every leftist. The further left you go, the more people fear. They fear the mob. They wouldn't stand up to the mob. So what they do is they exaggerate. You realize there were half a year, I would say, of mob rule in many cities in this country. Democrats did nothing except announce, in many cases, that there are too many police. Then there is this unarmed attack on the Capitol, and that's all we hear about, right? It's all we hear about. An insurrection. It's the first unarmed insurrection in modern history. How many people brought a weapon other than a fire extinguisher, theoretically? How many people brought a weapon? And even that is... I'm sorry?
It was there.
It was there, exactly. How many people brought a weapon? Is it zero? Zero.
Well, if you firearm, zero.
Yeah, but I mean by firearm.
Like the people that had...
What did they have? Medieval swords?
Maybe they had a baseball bat, I don't know.
Okay. A baseball bat.
Maybe.
As we know, insurrections are very effective with somebody carrying a baseball bat. The world of the lie, because it's the world of the left. The left is entirely based on lies. That's why they attack us always for lying, and then they never give In every article I read, and I mostly read the left, I would say half the time I read the left. Read the New York Times every day. The book, who wrote the great book on the pandemic? What's his name again? The former New York Times reporter? Alex Berenson. So I'm finishing his book. The amount of lying the New York Times engaged in. This is a former New York Times reporter about the epidemic. The media, because they're all on the left, what they do is they specialize in making people afraid of COVID, of therapeutics, which was evil. They're accessories to mass killing. The New York Times, Washington Post, and the American Medical Association, and the CDC, and the others. They are accessories to mass killing. I won't say mass murder, because murder has a specific definition, but mass killing. That's what they have done. And the insurrection is just another example of their lying. There was no insurrection. The threat to democracy took place in 2020 with mobs, burning, looting to this day. Most of the looters, as you see in the videos, are black, almost all young. But to even acknowledge that there is a crisis in the inner city of the fatherless is, of course, unacceptable. I don't think there is a college in this country. Well, I don't think there are 5 colleges in this country where a student who pointed that out would be allowed to continue a normal life at that college. Do you know that they're even afraid at the University of Pennsylvania women's team? They thought of not showing up for the next meet, but they know what will happen to them because of the NCAA and the University of Pennsylvania, a warped university. You're spending, I don't know, $80,000 a year to say your child went to the University of Pennsylvania, and guess what? Nobody gives a damn. The day you graduate, it's irrelevant where you went. One of my favorite people in the world is this young woman, 22 now, who sat in for me, the youngest person to ever, I think, do a national radio show. That's how much we admire her. And this is a person who is at Harvard. Julie, you probably know her, Julie Hartman. She's at Harvard, and as I tell her, when you are at Harvard, it's the H-bomb, as Harvard students say it. So where do you go to college? And then they sort of lower the decibel level and go Harvard, because it's so prestigious. But the day you graduate, it's irrelevant. Nobody cares where you went. I admit they care where you're going. So at the University of Pennsylvania, that you're spending all this money to have your child warped by very bad people in most cases, not all, most, bad and stupid teachers. And you can say, my child attends the University of Pennsylvania, but once they graduate, what are you going to say to friends then? My kid went to the University of Pennsylvania? So what? As I have pointed out in speeches, though not on the air much, I have been asked everything. As you know, I talk about every issue. Like yesterday, an hour on breasts, and I got tremendously positive feedback, by the way, in the male-female hour. I've been asked everything. I have never been asked at a speech or on the air. What college did you go to? You know why? Nobody gives a damn. And they're right. If I said Harvard or I said North Dakota State, will it affect the way you hear me? Or the way I can touch your life? Zero.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
The hard infrastructure bill that you helped pass, it meant a lot in terms of what it's going to get done, but it also meant a lot in the politics of getting Build Back Better killed. Can you explain that to people?
Yeah, I mean, initially the Democrats knew, the poll data was clear, what was popular was hard infrastructure, deteriorating roads and bridges and expand broadband. That was the popular part. And so I liked the approach in the Senate of putting together a bipartisan group. The president ended up agreeing with that to deal with the popular part of it, which I described as the sugar, leaving the Democrats to see if they could pass the spinach. And as we ended the year, it looks to me like they couldn't swallow the spinach. Now, I know Schumer said last night on a call he's not giving up. I don't expect him to. But the worst of BBB, it appears to me, is dead.
It does to me as well, and congratulations on that. It was great strategery, as former President Bush liked to say. I want to turn to senators. They have different career paths. Some are looking down the street at 1600, and some are looking at Mitch McConnell and want to be leader someday. John Thune's actually been in both positions. I read a story that got me upset that John Thune might be thinking of retiring. How do you say it ain't so, Joe, in South Dakota, Leader McConnell?
Well, John Thune is an outstanding senator. He's done a great job as whip, which is our number 2 position in the Senate. It would be a real setback for the country and for our party if he retires, and I certainly hope he won't.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Schools are lining up to push the transgender agenda on kids and cut parents out of the equation.
Go to salemnow.com.
I'm very reflective. I'm always reflective at the end of a year. So I'm reflecting on life and on the past year and two years. I want to remind you of another one of my new theories. Both optimism and pessimism are excuses not to fight. So I don't think whether I'm optimistic and I don't think whether I'm pessimistic. I simply don't reflect on that. The optimist has an excuse not to fight. Things will turn out well. Why should I fight? The pessimist has an excuse not to fight. Things are going to turn out lousy. Why should I fight? Optimism and pessimism in that regard may be useless. The only issue in life is, do you fight? You're lucky if you live in an age when you don't have to fight. Generally speaking, in human history, it has been perhaps more the exception than the rule. The human inclination toward doing bad things, as we see today with the left in the West, is a very deep one. That the best educated are generally the worst people is a fascinating statement about what education has become, isn't it? Wonder who goes to college, a regular college, and leaves wiser as a result of college, leaves kinder as a result of college. Do you know anybody who became a kinder human being? No, not one who worries about global warming. That doesn't make you kind. It makes you a sheep. And even if it makes you an activist for a wonderful thing, it doesn't make you kind. I can't think of any regular college in this country. Let's take the crappy University of Pennsylvania again, because everything in Philadelphia has been rendered crap. Every prestigious organization. And the city itself to a large extent. Oh, my kid went to University of Pennsylvania. What a transformation. She became such a good, kind human being as a result. The wisdom that my son picked up, my daughter picked up at University of Pennsylvania. Does anybody say that? Does anybody think it? Does anybody even hope for it? We'll be back.
Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
We had a great presidency, even though we were surrounded by maniacs that were looking to do damage. But we had a great presidency in terms of what we rebuilt the military. We cut taxes more than, the biggest tax cut in history, as you know, biggest regulation cut in history. What we've done.
I can hear you. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Take a look at what we did. And we had a tremendous foreign policy. You didn't have planes flying over Taiwan, and he understood that. You didn't have planes, bombers flying over Taiwan. You didn't have what's happening on Ukraine. You didn't have this. I mean, this looks like it's very serious stuff. They don't respect us anymore. And then when you add in the worst, in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, which is the withdrawal from the way they did the withdrawal from, Afghanistan. I've never seen anything worse than or more embarrassing than what we did with Afghanistan. We lost soldiers. By the way, many, many very severely wounded that nobody even talks about. We left hostages. We left American citizens behind. We left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful equipment, much of it behind.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
And initially, I was under the assumption that Rittenhouse was the person who was chasing after Joseph Rosenbaum, that's how it had started. But I was wrong about that. Okay, so I want to correct the record. I was, in fact, wrong about that.
she was wrong about it.
She's wrong about a lot of things.
And she wasn't alone. And so it must have been so frustrating because, Kyle, you knew this, and you were going through social media. It was unavoidable. You were on trial in 2 different courts.
The court of public opinion, which thank God I had people around me helping defend my character, such as my attorneys.
And so you had these 2 courts, and obviously you were most focused about, I don't know, like I'll win the court of public opinion later.
Yep.
Were you ever worried, though? Did you ever have the paranoia thought, like, man, is this jury really not watching the news? Is this, you know what I'm talking about?
Look, it's unavoidable, this case. They definitely probably saw some of this stuff. Some of them probably watched it. I hope some of them probably turned it off, but I guarantee 1 or 2 of them definitely were watching the news during the trial.
Every single jury person said that they had consumed media at the beginning of this, so it's impossible not to.
And it was the fear that we had, Kyle, is that there was this fear of jury intimidation, which we have some tape to play on.
I think it's MSNBC.
That's right. Not a fan.
Neither am I.
Good. We have that in common. And the judge announcing that MSNBC is banned from the courtroom for following jurors.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
If the comments by some of the justices aren't an indication of just how important this case is, you only need to hear, Justice Sotomayor talking about how this is going to set civil rights back and so forth. There's a lot of rhetoric that is being applied to this topic. And
hang on a second. I just want to be clear. That's what it is. It's rhetoric. So legally speaking, it's crap. It is crap.
That's
and
why
it
I
is
used the
offensive
word.
to me that you have Supreme Court justices who are spreading garbage. In other words, you can have any opinion you want, but it has nothing to do with the law. This is not about opinions. This is about what the law says. And so when you have no legal argument, you do things like this.
That's exactly right.
I find myself being really disgusted because I actually expect better from Supreme Court justices. They don't have to agree with me, but I expect them to actually behave like a Supreme Court justice. And when they spew rhetoric like this, it's really foul. I mean, it's just it's in my book, it's like cheating. It's like somebody saying like, yeah, he hit a home run, but he cheated. He did something. Let's just play by the rules. The rules are the Constitution and the law. And if you have an argument and you can make an argument or you have questions relevant, great. If not, what are you there? You're a cheerleader, you're a politician. I just want to be really clear because I think a lot of times people who are against abortion, like we are, they fall into the same trap. Folks, this is not about our opinions. This is about the law.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Hi, everybody. The final live show of the year. I have a lot to talk to you about. I'm going to take calls on whatever's on your mind. But first, I'm going to go to London, I believe, to speak for some moments with a remarkable man named Zuby, who is a well-known rapper. And I might add, on the basis of this video that is out PragerU this week on personal responsibility, a serious thinker. Zuby, it's a pleasure to meet you. Okay, we're not hearing Zuby. He's speaking, but we're not.
Can you hear me now?
I do indeed, yes.
There we go. I was saying thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. You have some background. I mean, where were you born? Where were you raised?
Sure. So I was born in the UK, in England specifically, and I was raised primarily in the Middle East, in Saudi Arabia.
God, what a typical background for an American.
Yeah,
so why don't you have an English accent?
So when I was in Saudi Arabia, I went to an American school from preschool all the way up until 5th grade. When I was 11 years old, I went to boarding school back in the UK, and then I was back and forth between the two countries for several years. I went to university in the UK, studied computer science at Oxford, but I was still living in Saudi Arabia at the time. So I have my accent because I grew up amongst Americans. Most of my teachers in Saudi Arabia were American, and I grew up in a very mixed community. So I've actually never had an English accent before.
Are you the only rapper with a degree in computer science?
I am not sure. I'm not sure.
That's a very honest answer. How about this? If you had to bet, how would you bet?
I would bet that I'm not the only one.
Oh, really?
I would bet that I'm not the only one, yeah.
That's fascinating. So tell me about your rapper career.
Yeah, sure thing. So I actually started rapping when I was in university. So I wrote my first lyrics actually when I was traveling. I got stuck in an airport, and I was in Paris. I was on my way to Nigeria, and I was by myself. I was bored. I just had my MP3 player and a pen and a pad, and I just started writing down some lyrics. I'd been a hip-hop fan for several years, but I'd never tried writing my own stuff. And then during that whole vacation, when I was out in Nigeria, I just kept on writing. I started recording some acapellas just into my phone. Then when I got back to university, one of my good friends, Chris, had a basic recording studio in his dorm room. So I'd download beats from the internet, go in there and record songs. First track I ever made was a song called The Bad Man. And I would just send my tracks out to friends and family, and I got really positive feedback. And then within less than a year, I actually ended up releasing my first independent album, which was called Commercial Underground, a record which I actually ended up selling over 3,000 copies independently of. So that was how it started. And then I started doing live performances around the UK. And over time, it continued to grow. Between 2008 and 2011, I worked full-time in the corporate world for a couple of years, but I was still doing my music stuff on the side. And then in November 2011, I took the plunge and went full-time with my music. So I've been doing what I do now, self-employed, for over a decade.
Wow. The only thing I could say is how often I speak to rappers who tell me that their career began on a trip to Nigeria.
At Oxford University as well.
Yeah,
right?
yes, that's what I forgot. And with the computer science background. You are aware of how unique your life is, I assume. By the way, do you speak Arabic?
Unfortunately not. Because I went to an American school when I was there, they actually didn't teach Arabic to the non-Arabic students, which is a huge shame because I hate to say that I lived in Saudi.
Right, of course. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't understand why they wouldn't teach Arabic or wherever an American school is. So you're how often do you come to the U.S.?
So I was in the U.S. for 3 months earlier on this year. I can actually reveal that I just got a U.S. visa approved. So I'm now going to be able to live and work in the USA. If I choose to, I'll be able to tour there. So that's brand new. So that just came a couple weeks ago. But I was in the U.S. for 3 months this year. I was there for 3 months as well in 2019 because without a visa, there's the 3-month limit as a British citizen. So yeah, I'll be back sometime next year.
How did PragerU and you get together?
How did Prager? So I did Candace's show when she was doing the podcast. I did the Candace Owens show when she came to London in 2019. I think that was the first connection. And then we stayed in touch. And then when I announced that I was coming to the US earlier on this year, I was reached out to and asked to do some podcasts, asked to do the 5-minute video. I think we were going to do that last year, actually, but with all the restrictions and everything, it got pushed back. So I think that's how the connection initially came up.
The man who probably contacted you, Alan Estrin, is also the producer of my show, and he's in the studio with me right now. So maybe Alan should answer this, but why would we think... It's a great video, by the way, and it's a phenomenally important message. I'm just curious, how did you, I guess I should ask Alan this, or maybe you would know the Zuby, why did we think you should do a video on personal responsibility?
That's a great question. Maybe Alan can answer that better than I can.
Give Alan the mic here. I am very, very curious, because it's no reflection on rappers at all, who run the gamut from brilliant to dumb like every other group. But no, they do. Every group does, except professors are disproportionately dumb. But anyway, yeah.
So we follow.
Wait, he's not on.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, now you are.
We follow Zuby on Twitter, and we follow his podcast, and we know that he talks a lot about personal responsibility in its various incarnations, and we thought he would be a great person to talk about this subject.
Well, he is. So put on the first minute of the video, which is up at PragerU this week.
Whoa, who wants to hear about that? Well, you do, if you want to have any chance at health, wealth, and happiness. So what does it mean, personal responsibility? You probably already know, but just in case, it means holding yourself accountable for your words and actions, instead of blaming others or making constant excuses. It means taking responsibility for your own successes, but also, and this is even more important, your own failures. Your life boils down to this: conscious choices, habits, and random events. You can't control everything that happens to you. Accidents, sickness, bad luck, human malice, and natural disasters are all unfortunate realities of life. On the other hand, you also get to experience love, friendship, kindness, opportunity, and generosity. All the good stuff life has to offer. But bad things do happen, and sometimes there's nothing we can do about it. What we can control is how we react.
That's great. So when I listen to the first part about blaming others, that's the antithesis of personal responsibility. I have no idea where you are politically, philosophically, but it doesn't matter, because on this subject we're so obviously in tune with one another. But it seems to me that the message that every young person who isn't white, male, heterosexual, and Christian gets is blame others for your problems, not yourself.
Yeah, and it's a huge shame. It's something that I actively fight against, because I think it's very destructive, and I don't think it's good for anybody in society. Number one, I don't think it's simply not correct. It's not accurate, and then it's just not conducive to individual success, let alone any type of societal cohesion. If you have people constantly at each other's throats or having feelings of resentment, bitterness, jealousy, all of these things are slow poisons that kill the person who's holding on to them.
Well, I just got to say, as a rap artist, with your intellect and insight, I think you could have a massive effect on people. I hope you start thinking in that direction.
Thank you. I'm doing my best. I've been putting my message out there for many years now. And
how do people find you on the internet?
Any social media at Zuby Music. That's ZUBY Music. Or if you go to zubymusic.com, you can find links to everything there.
You've inspired me to. I'm gonna try to write a rap song the next time I visit Nigeria.
Love it. Can't wait to hear it.
I really look forward to meeting you in person. You're a special man.
Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Please watch this video. Show it to your kids. And then ask, what exactly is wrong with PragerU? That we have a black rap artist of international fame telling people to take responsibility for their lives? Is that a bad thing?
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
You have Attorney Binger pick up an AR-15.
Oh my God, yeah.
And just decide you have better trigger posture than him, Kyle.
Kyle, what is he pointing at in the?
Is he threatening the jury?
Pretty much. He was pointing his gun at the gallery, and I looked at my attorney.
This is your gun, right?
That's my rifle.
Yeah, that is yours, right?
That we're having destroyed right now. We don't want anything to do with that.
Oh wow.
So I looked at Corey and I said, Corey, that's gun safety 101. Loaded or unloaded. Treat a gun like it's loaded.
Yeah. And he points it at the jury.
Exactly.
I think at that point I said, all right, they're freaking out. I mean, they got nothing left.
So there's this video that the FBI had in their archives, 14 months. It clearly shows you being chased down by this deranged individual, corners you, all of it, HD. You know, this isn't, behind the cars, because, and this was always key that people who are looking at this never got, is that all the camera footage from that night was surface level, right? Because it's handheld. So, and of course, Richie thinks he has his camera going, but he doesn't. And he's beating himself up over that, but it happens in the heat of the moment, that this thing is above, looking down, sees the whole thing. You can actually see the anger and just insanity in Rosenbaum's face as he's chasing you, that I don't think you show that face to anybody, that they would think that this guy,
and let alone threatening to kill them twice that night.
Right, that he has anything other than, very dangerous, evil intentions.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
America, if anybody wants it. But the answer is, yeah, I wish I had thought about ordering 500 million pills 2 months ago before COVID hit here.
But we're nearly 2 years into this pandemic. You're a year into the presidency. Empty shelves and no test kits in some places, 3 days before Christmas when it's so important. Is that good enough?
No, nothing's been good enough. But look where we are. When last Christmas, we were in a situation where we had significantly fewer people vaccinated. Emergency rooms were filled.
Well, Mr. President, yes, I would have to agree with you on that. For once, there's something you and I agree on. Nothing has been good enough.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. China has built the largest DNA database in the world, and it's only growing. This should concern all of us. That's because China could use this information in the future, perhaps, for example, to build bioweapons targeting specific ethnic groups. Given this background, common sense dictates that Americans shouldn't be storing their DNA or other personal information with Chinese-linked firms. Quite sensibly, after getting an FBI briefing about the firm's connections to China, the Los Angeles County Sheriff notified the county that his office wouldn't work with Fulgent. That's the genetics firm LA County hired for mandatory COVID testing and registration. Fulgent even admits in a public disclaimer it stores information outside the United States, where data privacy protections may not be as secure. I'll bet. What's alarming is how many others have chosen to work with Fulgent. The question is why.
Hi, friends. I'm Dennis Prager, reflecting on life on this final show of the year, final live show. A great best of is on tomorrow to give my staff vacation. Tomorrow's December 31st. It's also my wedding anniversary. It's somewhat of a giveaway. If you have an anniversary December 31st, the first thing that comes to people's minds is, for tax reasons. And they're right. Why did we do it January 27th? Oh my God, life flies. Can't believe how long we're together already. Quite. It's a great trip if you're lucky, and I've been very lucky. I didn't say it's been easy, but I have been lucky. Lucky is the person who thinks he's lucky. How's that? That's also true. Who is lucky? He who thinks he is. That's a good phrase. I was saying to the living martyr, a.k.a. Alan Estrin, a.k.a. Mr. Producer, that if you were to show your high school kid one video, or college kid, of the 500 5-minute videos we have up at PragerU, I'm tempted to say show him Zuby. This black rapper, good-looking guy, articulate guy. He's not articulate. I know people, articulate saying because he's black. Like I don't say it about other guys. It's what the left has done to language. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He's obviously quite deep and bright. Him looking at a kid and talking about personal responsibility, that might be the video that I would start with to get them into PragerU. I'd say one of the best things you could do for your child is to have them, pay them if you must. I bribe my kids to do good things. I don't see why not. To watch all 500 videos. It's life-changing. They're 5 minutes each. Couldn't even finish a bag of popcorn in the time it takes. Yes, so that's a good one to watch. Okay, let's see here. That's a very funny. I'll answer it because how long would I stand in line to see the Stanley Cup? I actually saw the Stanley Cup when the LA Kings were in it. I don't stand in line for anything. I just don't. I can't think of what's worth standing in line for. I just don't. I will go elsewhere. If there's a line for a restaurant, I will go to a dive and eat. I'm not saying it's the right thing. Most people don't care if they stand in line. I think it's a waste of time. So anyway, it's an interesting. He's laughing. Good. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Ari in North Wales, Pennsylvania. I got to admit, Pennsylvania has the most colorful names of cities. They have isn't it true that there's a city in Pennsylvania called Intercourse?
That is, and there's also one called Blue Ball, I think.
Is it Blue Ball or Blue Bell?
There's both. I believe there's both. Blue Bell is right near where I am.
So you
Blue
can
Ball,
actually,
I'm not sure.
Really, you could drive from Blue Ball to Intercourse?
Well, Blue Bell is near me. I'm not sure where Blue Ball is, but I believe Blue Ball. I believe Blue Ball is also a town in Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, thanks for taking my call. I met you in person many years ago at the National Constitution Center, where you broadcasted a show from there in Philadelphia. And I was lucky enough to shake your hand and talk with you briefly and get a picture with you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. I wanted to get your thoughts on dating a liberal woman. And the reason I'm asking is because most of these dating apps, such as like Bumble or Tinder or OkCupid, 90%, and this is not an exaggeration, 90% of the profiles for women are liberal women. And this won't shock you, but 90% of those 90% of the profiles show agnostic or atheist as their religion because they don't have a religion, because leftism is basically their religion, as you've said many times. So I guess my question is, because so many of these profiles are liberal women, do you think it makes any sense to waste time trying to possibly convert a liberal woman that's maybe not like leftist, but maybe just like liberal or center left, to try to convert to conservatism, since there's so few conservatives on these apps?
Well, I'm curious, why are you asking that when there are 10% of a large number are conservative? Why don't you restrict your dating to people you share values with?
Well, the problem is with most of these sites, you both have to like each other. And because there's thousands and thousands of people, vying for conservatives or just in general, it narrows the possibility of you matching up. So in other words, I can't send a message to someone without them also liking my profile. If I could, that would be much easier because I could just initiate the conversation. But most of these apps, you can't just directly message them. You both have to match with each other, and then either they can message you or you can message them first, depending on the app.
Right. So what does that have to do with what my answer was? You mean conservative women don't like you?
No, it's not so much that they don't like me. It's just I match with very, very, very few of them. And they just tend to not
all right. So
work
that's
out
your
somehow.
answer. Okay, then that's the answer. There are so few of them that you want to know, do I stand a chance of converting a liberal as opposed to leftist woman because I have a much greater array or choice of women among liberal women? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
So,
because there's so
yes,
few conservative.
I think an open-minded, rational liberal will be converted in a week. So therefore, the issue is the person intellectually open and rational? If they love truth and reason, they will stop being on the left, even as a liberal.
I agree with that. And I'm sure you're not shocked that almost all of these profiles that identify as liberal show either agnostic or atheist.
Naturally, right, yes.
Their religion.
So, okay, good luck. I'm glad you're on a site. What do I hear? So he mentioned Hinge, OkCupid. What was the third he mentioned? A Bumble, and did he say Match.com, Hinge? I mean, those seem to be the big ones. I'm a total proponent of people going on the internet. I don't see a single good argument against it. Back in a moment.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Right. So this has changed in the culture. We now have entire stadiums screaming blank Joe Biden.
Right.
I actually think that in some measure this is a sign of health in the country.
I don't think you're wrong. In fact, my last column, I talk about in essence, what the American people are feeling in terms of how they're being treated by the current administration.
Now, excuse me, by the way, I'm not saying I approve of it.
Right.
It makes me uncomfortable.
Clearly.
But at the same time,
we're talking about what we're observing.
It seems like a strange sign of health that we feel free enough
to say that.
Well, and I don't even know that we necessarily feel free. What I would say is that the American people feel like kind of a battered spouse at this point.
Okay, you wrote an article.
And that the administration is so abusive to how they're treating people that this reaction that you're seeing, and it started out in 2 college football stadiums. It's now been in dozens to hundreds.
It's the new wave.
NFL teams had it going on this week. Talladega or NASCAR or whatever they ran had people chanting it. There is something so inherently abusive about how people are being treated
by the government.
They are, and particularly in a society that wouldn't consider itself particularly Christocentric. And it is, I am actually thankful, to your point, to see a degree of, we're not going to let this abuse continue, even if it's nothing more than using our freedom of speech to say something that's very vulgar and attach it to him. We're not taking it anymore.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
There's about 57 Muslim states in the world. There's one Jewish state.
The massive ingathering of Jews in the last 150 years back to the land is absolutely unprecedented.
They say that there's no greater sign of redemption coming than the Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
As a Christian, I've always supported Israel's claim to the Holy Land. To me, the Palestinians were just getting in the way of God's plan.
300,000 Palestinians are unemployed.
In spite of all the years of conflict, there's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
The public would be outraged if they knew the truth.
Why do you think our politicians are not on the sidewalk right now talking to you?
Don't have no respect.
The old wall randomly turns into a guardrail, followed by miles of open border. Human trafficking.
That journey is extremely dangerous.
The 7-year-old girl died in the desert.
From the country of India.
A great pillar of the community was killed by a man who had been deported at least twice.
This little urn contains the ashes of my son. His dreams cut short forever.
We're so worried about other countries' problems, and we don't even focus on our own.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
All right, everybody, I'm Dennis Prager, and let me take some calls on this final live show of the year, December 30, 2021. And go to Keith in Los Angeles. Hello, Keith.
Hi, Dennis. It's great talking with you. You've helped me to think more clearly and give me a lot of wisdom over the years listening to you.
Thank you for
Appreciate it.
that.
Hey, I really am interested in the forgiveness topic that you brought up yesterday, and say it's something that I deal with a lot. Because I committed murder 30 years ago. I did 25 years in prison. I've been out 5 years, and I struggle with that. I agree with you that forgiveness can only be, I don't agree that you just forgive somebody because you're a Christian. I became a Christian years ago. But biblical Christianity requires, and forgiveness requires repentance, and repentance is turning from your sin, doing a 180 from what you were doing before. So I think I've gotten forgiveness from God because I've asked for forgiveness and I've repented of my sin, and and I believe I will never commit murder again. But in the Bible, even in Colossians, it says that we're to if forgiving each other as the Lord has forgiven you, so you must also forgive. But the Lord only forgives us when we repent. So I don't believe that forgiveness could just come from without the perpetrator asking for forgiveness and repenting. I never asked my victim's family for forgiveness. They used to come to my parole hearings, and I saw what I did to them, and all the.
Can you tell me a little bit about why you committed murder? Were you in a gang?
Yeah,
were you alone? Was it?
I was alone. It was somebody I knew, and I didn't like them, and I was a horrible person, and I committed murder. It was intentional. I was found guilty of second-degree murder, 15 years to life, and
so was it premeditated?
It was premeditated. Yeah. And I know your stance.
Right. What do you?
I know your stance.
Right. So what's your stance on capital punishment?
I'm for capital punishment. I really am. And then you'd say, well, are you capital punishment for yourself? Because when I got paroled, it wasn't like I said, oh, I don't want to be paroled. It's not fair. But I'll tell you, Dennis, I struggle with my own forgiveness. I've thought of, I'm doing very well. I've been out 5 years. I make a lot of money. I have a beautiful place. And the more successful I become, the more guilty I feel, because I know my victim doesn't get the chance to live, and I feel a lot of guilt that I get that. And so, I've actually thought of suicide sometimes. Hey, is it right for me to live? This isn't fair. And I know your stance on it. I've heard you talk about it, that murder deserves death. So I am for capital punishment for premeditated murder. Mine was second-degree murder, which they consider a little bit less than first degree, but it's still
right.
The victim's gun.
Do you know, when I was at the Louisiana Penitentiary, the Angola State Prison, the largest, I think, state prison in America, I was there for a day, and I was among hundreds of murderers. And I asked a group of 8 that I was talking to, raise your hand if you're pro-capital punishment. And I thought no hands would go up, and the majority of hands went up. I actually have a picture of them raising their hands. So it may shock people to hear that you, someone who did commit murder, is for capital punishment. That makes me respect the sincerity of your penitence even more.
Yeah, I know.
I am. Oh, by the way, I'm just curious. Do you date?
That's a great question. I have. I'm not doing it right now because I have to be honest with who I date, and that has to come up. I've dated where I haven't told the girl before, and then I broke it off because I'm like, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to have to tell her. And then I've dated with telling people that I have murdered, and they're okay with it. But I still feel that it's a little bit of a, not a little bit of an impediment, but a lot. So
I would think so. Listen, there's no perfect resolution to your issue. I want you to lead a life, and yet I admire the fact that you're troubled, that you're even troubled that you were spared a life while you took one. So you're becoming a good man. Thank you. Relief factor. The relief factor doesn't help one's conscience, I have to say. So don't take it if you have a troubled conscience, but do take it if you have a troubled body, particularly muscles and joints. The thing is phenomenally effective. It's far better for you than ibuprofen at any length of time. Try it for 30 days. If it doesn't work in 30 days, they say, it probably won't work. Cancel your order. But for 30 days, you could try it for $19.95 at ReliefFactor.com.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
If he was disappointed, and to explain why he was not able to sell a member of his own party, Joe Manchin, on the idea of Build Back Better, why this was not important for the American people. In cut number 9, Biden says, hey, it's not over yet. He seemed optimistic that there was still hope that he could bring Joe Manchin around. Cut number 9.
You've met with Senator Joe Manchin a number of times. You invited him to your home in Delaware. He came to the White House a week ago. Then he's on Sunday morning cable and says, I'm a no. How does that happen? How are you not able to close the deal?
Well, look, let's talk about what we have done. We have passed more major legislation than anybody in their first year ever. Now, I haven't given up on this. I haven't given up on it.
But Senator Manchin's main sticking point, it would appear, is the child tax credit. Are you willing to take that out if it means bringing him on board?
Well, look, I want to get as much as I can possibly get done. As much as we can possibly get done. I still think we'll be able to get a significant amount of what we need to get done, particularly as the American people figure out what is in this legislation.
Well, isn't that part of the problem? That the American people kind of know what's in this 2,000-page spending bill? Isn't that the problem, Mr. President? We do know what's in there. That's why we do not support it. That's why your approval rating hit an all-time low this week, around 41%. The American people know what's in that spending plan, and they simply don't want it. Joe Manchin knows that the people of West Virginia can't afford what you're trying to sell.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
I wonder how old Jacob Petticoat. So I'm going to begin and do it periodically over the next hour and 15 minutes, thanking people who make this show possible. When I look at the list, it reminds me, though I'm generally aware of it, but it reminds me of how many people it takes for you to hear me. And now watch me at the Salem News Channel. And especially with interviews, they're almost all now done on video. It's fun to see my guests. I have no idea if it's fun to see me. I'm agnostic on that issue, but it's definitely fun to see the guests. Zuby is the most recent example. So in no specific order except the way it's handed to me, this I'm doing out of obligation. I just feel a moral obligation to thank Sean, the technical director of the show. That's right, Triple G, the gentle Gentile giant. That was a great nickname for you. Now, I want to make something clear. Sean could, in fact, sit behind this microphone and speak to you. I could not sit where he is and get the show broadcast. he could do my job better than I could do his job. Is that fair to say? I know one thing about the technical aspect, plus minus. However, I will acknowledge that I have no idea what that means. I only know that when I'm broadcasting from outside the studio, what we call a remote location, usually a hotel room, if it doesn't work, I just go plus minus and, mixed minus, not plus minus? No, so I didn't even get that right. Anyway, Sean, how many years are we together? June 07? What, did we meet in Alaska? June 07. I love that. June 07. 14 years. Wow. Just for the record, all of my technical directors have been named Sean. It's something I insist on. So he had a leg up when... How did I say you applied the other day? We bumped into each other? You slipped on a banana peel, fell into my arms, and you said that there were listeners who completely assumed that was true. Oh, that's right. That I want to punch you. So anyway, Sean, it's a delight. You're an important part of my life. Video director, since we're now on video, is Will Kirby, who's a blast. Will is a blast. Christian is a pleasure, but not a blast. Is that fair? I mean, what am I going to say? If everybody's a blast, then nobody's a blast. All right? They're both great guys. Well, one's a blast. Christian, is Christian here today? He's on vacation. Oh, good. So he didn't hear a damn word I said. That's great. Oh, our screeners. Do we love our screeners? Living Martyr, what do you say? These women are special. I'm not joking. To prove how special, one of them was on the show yesterday for an hour. The screener. And she was magnificent. Is that not correct? Leslie Friedman. On a very difficult subject, breasts. I mean, it's hard for me to talk. Well, nothing's hard for me to talk about, actually, but it's not easy for a woman to talk about the subject to millions of people and speak of her own surgeries and so on. Anyway, I got incredible feedback on how valuable that show was in women understanding men, which is a big part of the male-female era. Anyway, Leslie Friedman, Suzette Kirby, Jennifer Ray, Linda McDonald. These are great women. And they're a joy to work with. They have some of them, every one of them has been in a punishment room at least once, I might add, and come back the next time. Taking your calls is an art. Do you know that? People call in, sometimes they're incoherent, sometimes they're angry. They take it out. It's like, if you're angry at an airline, you take it out on the flight attendant, right? Or on the woman, checking in your bags. So thank you all. It's a joy to work with you. The home station is KRLA here in Glendale, California, outside of Los Angeles. Mark Pollock. Mark said a very sweet thing to me yesterday about how a joy it is to have been working with me all these years, and it's completely mutual. He's also a major drummer, a jazz drummer. Richard Blythe, who just came in because we had technical problems. We get in touch with him, he shows up immediately. And Jim Tinker and Rodney Miller, these are the local technical people. And we thank you. I'm not even half done. It is an amazing thing. I love the fact that there are so many people who work on this show and make it possible. How does it work? We broadcast from Glendale, right outside of L.A. The signal goes to where? The Empire State Building? Is that, and then to Dallas, or to Dallas, and then that's right, to Dallas, and I'll mention the Dallas crowd, then to the Empire State Building, and then up to a satellite. And then down to all the affiliates. It's magic to me. It is just magic. This was my dream, to talk to a lot of people about what matters to me. I didn't even know how it would happen, but that was my dream from high school. We continue on the Dennis Prager Show.
Streaming on Salem Now.
We understand that a plane has crashed into...
The people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Biggest and most costly manhunt in U.S. history.
United States killed Osama bin Laden.
There are reports surfacing that Al-Qaeda has placed a $50,000 US bounty on the heads of any U.S. Navy SEALs.
Nobody's going to survive that. There's nobody in that.
This is the single largest loss of life in Afghanistan in a single incident.
Most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
We discovered bullets in the bodies of the Navy SEALs. The military threw them away.
More likely than not, that supports a shootout on board.
Anybody out there, we have a fallen angel.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
There's about 57 Muslim states in the world. There's one Jewish state.
The massive ingathering of Jews in the last 150 years back to the land is absolutely unprecedented.
They say that there's no greater sign of redemption coming than the Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
As a Christian, I've always supported Israel's claim to the Holy Land. To me, the Palestinians were just getting in the way of God's plan.
300,000 Palestinians are unemployed.
In spite of all the years of conflict, there's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
The public would be outraged if they knew the truth.
Why do you think our politicians are not on the sidewalk right now talking to you?
Don't have no respect.
The old wall randomly turns into a guardrail, followed by miles of open border. Human trafficking.
That journey is extremely dangerous.
The 7-year-old girl died in the desert.
From the country of India.
A great pillar of the community was killed by a man who had been deported at least twice.
This little urn contains the ashes of my son. His dreams cut short forever.
We're so worried about other countries' problems, and we don't even focus on our own.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
You can now go to... Okay. Yes, this is, it's going fast, this last show of the year for me. Oh, boy. Mandy in Atlanta, Georgia, hello.
Dennis, it's an honor to talk to you. How are you?
Thank you. I'm well. Happy New Year.
thank you, and to you. I just wanted to tell you, I told the screener, I've been a supporter of PragerU pretty much since it started. On my son's birthday, it's the same day as your birthday. And watching the documentary on the Daily Wire, it gave me such hope that I haven't had in the last 2 years. I just wanted to thank you so much.
Wow. Well, you made my day. You know, folks, I'm the recipient of a tremendous amount of hate. Mainstream media, tech sites. But I'm the recipient of so much warmth as well. And I recommend this attitude to everybody. I don't let the compliments go to my head, and I don't let the insults go to my heart. But nevertheless, it's very meaningful to me to hear from people like Mandy. So thank you. Malvern, Pennsylvania. Chris, hello.
Dennis, God bless you for everything you do for this country.
Thank you. He has blessed me.
My last name is Zubik, and my nickname is Zuby. So I came across...
Are you black or white?
I'm white. So
okay.
I came across him, and I ordered about $900 worth of sweatshirts, hats, knit hats, and I gave them out to all my friends. Every time I hear the video, I crack up, and all my friends crack up.
Because your nickname is Zuby.
My nickname is Zuby. My last name is Zubik.
I got it.
And that video is so inspirational. It has to go viral.
It has to.
And I'm doing everything I possibly can for that.
Thank you for that. I'm telling you, I don't remember saying this in the past. I certainly might have, but I don't remember doing so. If you show one video of PragerU to a high school or college person in your life, the truth is you could show it to an 80-year-old. It's relevant to everybody, but especially to young people. I would say it's this week's video by this very deep, very articulate black rapper. Black is in. That's just a fact. And a rapper, who would expect a rapper at PragerU and one to speak about personal responsibility?
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
The whole thing is up in flames. I don't even want to waste a lot of time on the degenerate who burned it down. It was a guy from Brooklyn, I think 49 years old. They miraculously got him. And I just cannot shake what a metaphor that is. You know, millions and millions of people watch Fox News. Fox News celebrates American exceptionalism, greatness, the very, very patriotic channel. There's no way around that. They love the country. They proudly air plenty of conservative views, along with liberal views as well. They try to take their fair and balanced mantra pretty seriously. And some evil guy decided to burn down the Fox News channel red, white, and blue Christmas tree last night. And it's gone. And I just keep thinking about how much evil there is right now in the country, what we're up against as Americans. Right is wrong, good is evil, up is down, everything is inside out. And I was so anguished this morning in hearing about this and so upset. And I know a lot of it is because of my personal relationship over the years with Fox. I spent many, many hours walking to and from Fox as a Fox News contributor. I guest hosted Sean Hannity's show a number of times. I guest hosted Fox and Friends back in the day. I was on Fox many, many nights.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
The hard infrastructure bill that you helped pass, it meant a lot in terms of what it's going to get done, but it also meant a lot in the politics of getting Build Back Better killed. Can you explain that to people?
Yeah, I mean, initially the Democrats knew, the poll data was clear, what was popular was hard infrastructure, deteriorating roads and bridges and expand broadband. That was the popular part. And so I liked the approach in the Senate of putting together a bipartisan group. The president ended up agreeing with that to deal with the popular part of it, which I described as the sugar, leaving the Democrats to see if they could pass the spinach. And as we ended the year, it looks to me like they couldn't swallow the spinach. Now, I know Schumer said last night on a call he's not giving up. I don't expect him to. But the worst of BBB, it appears to me, is dead.
It does to me as well, and congratulations on that. It was great strategery, as former President Bush liked to say. I want to turn to senators. They have different career paths. Some are looking down the street at 1600, and some are looking at Mitch McConnell and want to be leaders someday. John Thune's actually been in both positions. I read a story that got me upset that John Thune might be thinking of retiring. How do you say it ain't so, Joe, in South Dakota, Leader McConnell?
Well, John Thune is an outstanding senator. He's done a great job as whip, which is our number 2 position in the Senate. It would be a real setback for the country and for our party if he retires, and I certainly hope he won't.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
You have Attorney Binger pick up an AR-15.
Oh my God, yeah.
And just decide you have better trigger posture than him, Kyle.
Kyle, what is he pointing at in the?
Is he threatening the jury?
Pretty much. He was pointing his gun at the gallery, and I looked at my attorney. This is your gun, right? That's my rifle. Yeah, that is yours, right? That we're having destroyed right now. We don't want anything to do with that. Oh wow. So I looked at Corey and I said, Corey, that's gun safety 101. Loaded or unloaded. Treat a gun like it's loaded.
Yeah. And he points it at the jury.
Exactly.
I think at that point I said, all right, they're freaking out. I mean, they got nothing left.
So there's this video that the FBI had in their archives, 14 months. It clearly shows you being chased down by this deranged individual, corners you, all of it, HD. This isn't, behind the cars, because, and this was always key that people who are looking at this never got, is that all the camera footage from that night was surface level, right? Because it's handheld. Mm-hmm. So, and of course, Richie thinks he has his camera going, but he doesn't. And he's beating himself up over that, but it happens in the heat of the moment, that this thing is above, looking down, sees the whole thing. You can actually see the anger and just insanity in Rosenbaum's face as he's chasing you, that I don't think you show that face to anybody, that they would think that this guy, and let alone threatening to kill them twice that night. Right, that he has anything other than, very dangerous, evil intentions.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
America, if anybody wants it. But the answer is, yeah, I wish I had thought about ordering 500 million pills 2 months ago before COVID hit here.
But we're nearly 2 years into this pandemic. You're a year into the presidency. Empty shelves and no test kits in some places, 3 days before Christmas when it's so important. Is that good enough?
No, nothing's been good enough. But look where we are. When last Christmas, we were in a situation where we had significantly fewer people vaccinated. Emergency rooms were filled.
Well, Mr. President, yes, I would have to agree with you on that. For once, there's something you and I agree on. Nothing has been good enough.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
This is it, everybody. The last live hour of the Dennis Prager Show in 2021. Yeah, this is worthy of that opening theme. I find it dramatic. I find ends and beginnings dramatic. I'm going to philosophize and take calls this last hour. I think most of you who listen at all regularly know that I love this work. And I am convinced that if you didn't think that, you would not like what you hear. You would not regularly listen. I think for any person in public life, if we sense that they're not fully committed, we're not fully committed. I like to look at, I'm into classical music, and I like to look at musicians' faces. Members of the orchestra, the soloist, if there's a concerto, or just soloist, period, and I watch them. And the more they appear to be into it, the more I enjoy the music, which is irrational. I should either enjoy it or not enjoy it. But we want to believe that it's meaningful to the person. This is very meaningful to me. I always risk some adverse reaction from people. I think I risk it by telling you that I wanted to do this. My life's mission was set forth in my third year in high school. I wrote in the diary that I kept for a few years. I didn't have the discipline to continue a diary. I don't have many regrets. That's one of them. I wish I had. And I wrote, I know what I want to do with my life. I want to influence people to the good. You're very lucky if you know what you want to do with your life at an early age. And I know, looking back, I know how lucky I was in that regard. The biggest dilemma for me was not, gee, well, how will I do that? No. In other words, what will I say to influence people to the good? I had a very clear sense of what people need to hear. My question was, and it was it gnawed at me, especially as I reached my early 20s, how am I going to do this? What am I going to do to reach a lot of people? To reach even a lot of people? And then God or fate, it is not possible to know which, but I don't exclude God as a possible source, made it so that I actually started public speaking at 21. When I came back from the Soviet Union, where I spent a month smuggling in religious items and smuggling out names of Jews who wanted to escape. I was sent there by the state of Israel to do that work. They couldn't send Israelis because they had no relations between Israel and the Soviet Union. After the Six-Day War, the Soviets cut them off. I knew Russian and I knew Hebrew, so I was the perfect candidate. I learned Russian in college, learned Hebrew in it from elementary school on. So I was speaking publicly at 21. I've been renting cars to go to speeches since 23. The first 2 years of my speaking life, I would say yes when the people who invited me, the community, the organization, they'd say, oh, so-and-so would love to pick you up at the airport. And I realized within maybe even a year, this was not a good idea because I worked harder in the car with the guy or woman who picked me up than I did at the speech. It was like a second speech because, they would talk to me about their views about things, or they would ask me questions. And I realized, I'm totally happy to be with people, but the amount of time, the driving. Anyway, I decided to rent a car, and I've been renting cars ever since. Anyway, I love the freedom of being able to go where I want. And the rest is history, although it's a very amazing trip to a national radio show and to PragerU. It's an amazing trip. So my dream from my third year in high school has come to some fruition. I say some because there are so many people who have not read me, heard me, watched me, and my ideas. That's what matters to me, not me. I know this also is a risk to say this, but I'll say it. I think I have a solution to evil. And the more people who hear it, the less evil there will be. That's why I write what I do. That's why I speak. That's why I write a weekly column. That's why I have PragerU. By the way, my prescription is incredibly simple. Follow the 10 Commandments. The problem is, in the secular world in which we live, it sounds bizarre, if not primitive, not foolish even. And even most conservatives who went to college are secular. I don't have a large following for the idea that the route to a better world is the 10 Commandments. But I think I convince people over time, what is your route? Right? There's so much evil in the world. So what is, if you don't like my prescription, what is your prescription? Follow your conscience? Please. Every Nazi, communist, fascist, racist has followed their conscience. Their conscience enabled them to sleep very well at night. So obviously that's not a particularly effective. Follow reason? I believe that. That I do believe. You should follow reason. That is correct. But it's not enough. Right? What does reason tell you? Here's a good one. What does reason, forget God, what does reason tell you, let's say, about third trimester abortion? The people who are angry at the pro-life people say, oh, you keep mixing in religion and state. Okay, so let's get rid of religion and just tell me, what does reason tell you about a fetus, a baby, unborn, whatever term you want to use, in the third trimester, when it's completely viable outside the mother? Right? What does it say to you? Reason alone. It's so obvious that reason says it's immoral that it's not even worth belaboring the point. And yet the whole reason crowd without God says, oh, no. Up to the moment of birth, you can kill the child. Then a moment after birth, you can't. Does that sound rational to you? The rational crowd thinks that if a guy says he's a woman, he can swim against women swimmers, as the University of Pennsylvania fraud named Leah has done. So the reason without God crowd has done pretty crappily. That's what the universities claim. They're the most irrational places. That's the irony. So my prescription is a damn good one. We'll take calls. I also have more thank yous to offer on this final hour of my broadcast year.
This is Carol Platt-Liebau for townhall.com. China has built the largest DNA database in the world, and it's only growing. This should concern all of us. That's because China could use this information in the future, perhaps, for example, to build bioweapons targeting specific ethnic groups. Given this background, common sense dictates that Americans shouldn't be storing their DNA or other personal information with Chinese-linked firms. Quite sensibly, after getting an FBI briefing about the firm's connections to China, the Los Angeles County Sheriff notified the county that his office wouldn't work with Fulgent. That's the genetics firm LA County hired for mandatory COVID testing and registration. Fulgent even admits in a public disclaimer it stores information outside the United States, where data privacy protections may not be as secure. I'll bet. What's alarming is how many others have chosen to work with Fulgent. The question is why.
Publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
If he was disappointed, and to explain why he was not able to sell a member of his own party, Joe Manchin, on the idea of Build Back Better, why this was not important for the American people. In cut number 9, Biden says, hey, it's not over yet. He seemed optimistic that there was still hope that he could bring Joe Manchin around. Cut number 9.
You've met with Senator Joe Manchin a number of times. You invited him to your home in Delaware. He came to the White House a week ago. Then he's on Sunday morning cable and says, I'm a no. How does that happen? How are you not able to close the deal?
Well, look, let's talk about what we have done. We have passed more major legislation than anybody in their first year ever. Now, I haven't given up on this. I haven't given up on it.
But Senator Manchin's main sticking point, it would appear, is the child tax credit. Are you willing to take that out if it means bringing him on board?
Well, look, I want to get as much as I can possibly get done. As much as we can possibly get done. I still think we'll be able to get a significant amount of what we need to get done. Particularly as the American people figure out what is in this legislation.
Well, isn't that part of the problem? That the American people kind of know what's in this 2,000-page spending bill? Isn't that the problem, Mr. President? We do know what's in there. That's why we do not support it. That's why your approval rating hit an all-time low this week, around 41%. The American people know what's in that spending plan, and they simply don't want it. Joe Manchin knows that the people of West Virginia can't afford what you're trying to sell.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Hi, everybody. Here's a nice thing you can do as the year ends. Just go to blockthemandate.com. They're not asking you for money. They're asking for your support. Job Creators Network has created blockthemandate.com. They are the biggest defender of small business in the United States. Small business is really a major reason for America's greatness. So this mandate thing, which is it's going to go to the Supreme Court because different circuit courts have ruled differently. It's an amazing thing, right? You can fire people for not getting a vaccine. It's an astonishing time that we are living in. Please go to blockthemandate.com. It's a great thing. More thank yous here. It's very important to me to thank the people who make this show possible, and there are so many. It's dazzling. You know what it's like? You ever see a movie? I always like watching the credits at the end. Do you see how many people are involved in making a movie? Isn't it? It's astonishing. Hundreds. And it's true. And we're not a movie. I'm just talking into a microphone, and Sean presses buttons and prays that he pressed the right one, which shows God does answer prayer. The very fact that you hear this show with Sean at the controls is an argument for the divine. 100%. He just said that in my earphones. All right, let's see. The station manager here at KRLA, my broadcast home, is Terry Fay. Thank you, Terry. And by the way, thank you to all the salespeople at every station that I'm on. Every salesperson who meets me knows how much I adore them and appreciate their work, because I explain to them, you make my work possible. It is the salespeople. You don't get ads, I don't broadcast. There is no Dennis Prager show. You need me, that's obvious. But I need you just as much. So I want you all in sales all over this country, at all the stations I'm on, to know how much I appreciate you. In Dallas, which is headquarters of Salem Radio, we have, my good friend Rob Ellis runs the Prager store. You know that Rob is a very accomplished religious thinker as well. You should talk to him. I mean, we got some really terrific people. Tom Trattap and Jim Bartow and Mitchell Thibodeau and Frank Lagar and Matt Mungle. I'm sorry. I always get one name ruined. Thibodeau? Not the. But you're right, because French they would say te, not the. In New York, Phil Boyce, who runs the Salem Radio Network. Phil. You know how I know when a call from Phil is going to be a positive one? I mean, they're all positive ultimately, but an easy one is Dr. Prager. That's how he begins. I am not a doctor. I have an honorary doctorate, which I don't regard as entitling me for the title, but it is adorable. Eric Hansen, our wonderful technical guy in New York. Eric, how are you? How are the Rangers doing? In Camarillo, is Camarillo the headquarters or Dallas? No, it's Camarillo. Corporate headquarters is Camarillo, and Dallas is technical headquarters. Okay. Dave Santrella is CEO of Salem Media Group. Ed Atzinger is the founder and now executive chairman of the board of directors. I can't say enough about Salem. Been with you for 20 years. I don't think there's been a moment of tension. No, one moment. but not Jeopardy type. No, my you know why? I used to work for Disney, so I can really compare. Disney owned ABC. I was with ABC for 17 years. And it's the world of difference, because the people at Salem have a moral mission. They want to make money, but they have a moral mission first. The people at Disney have no moral mission. None. Zero. In fact, they've become one of the most woke corporations in the country. Disney has become a destructive force. So believe me, I appreciate Salem. Hey, the guest hosts. Mark Davis, Mark Eisler, Bob France, Carl Jackson, John Hinderaker, Will Witt, and Amala Ekonobi. Oh, and yes, Julie Hartman. Yeah, oh, right, Nick Adams, that's right. I'm in good hands when I'm gone. The show's in good hands. That's right. I didn't mention Daniel. What's Daniel's last name?
West.
West? Julie knows and I don't? That is a little sad. I agree. That Daniel West? That's your whole last name? That's it? West? How big is the West family? I love Daniel, everybody. I'm telling you. I don't even know what he does. I just know he's here, and I like him. Maybe he does nothing. Is that possible? You do things. Get out. That's cool. You know, if you can, this is the dream in life, is to do good and have a good time while doing it. That is like as good a life as the human being can really have. That's what I have. I do good and I have a good time doing it. Isn't that great? Is Alan necessary for me to have a good time? Alan is necessary for me to do good. He does. He makes it possible for me to have a good time by being the martyr. That's another example of his martyrdom. I sacrifice so that Dennis can touch more and more people. He's not even smiling.
Is that funny?
He looks at me, he goes, is that funny? This is a precious moment in my show's history, I need to say. I didn't even thank him because he said, don't thank me, which is it's so in keeping with his martyrdom. But I want you to understand, when we call him the living martyr, it's our term. He didn't pick that up. Is that correct? I applied it to you, and you have graciously accepted it. But I want you to know there is not one eensy, teensy, beensy micron of self-pity in this man, just for the record. Okay? He may be a living martyr objectively, but not subjectively. All right, now we continue with the show. The thank yous come from the bottom of my heart. I love gratitude anyway.
Streaming on Salem Now.
There's about 57 Muslim states in the world. There's one Jewish state.
The massive ingathering of Jews in the last 150 years back to the land is absolutely unprecedented.
They say that there's no greater sign of redemption coming than the Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
As a Christian, I've always supported Israel's claim to the Holy Land. To me, the Palestinians were just getting in the way of God's plan.
300,000 Palestinians are unemployed.
In spite of all the years of conflict, there's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
The public would be outraged if they knew the truth.
Why do you think our politicians are not on the sidewalk right now talking to you?
Don't have no respect.
The old wall randomly turns into a guardrail, followed by miles of open border.
Human trafficking.
That journey is extremely dangerous.
The 7-year-old girl died in the desert.
From the country of India.
A great pillar of the community was killed by a man who had been deported at least twice.
This little urn contains the ashes of my son. His dreams cut short forever.
We're so worried about other countries' problems, and we don't even focus on our own.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Judge Thomas, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I was under constant attack. You're not really black because you're not doing what we expect black people to do. This is the wrong black guy. He has to be destroyed.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Had people chanting it. There is something so inherently abusive about how people are being treated
by the government.
They are, and particularly in a society that wouldn't consider itself particularly Christocentric. And it is, I am actually thankful, to your point, to see a degree of, we're not going to let this abuse continue, even if it's nothing more than using our freedom of speech to say something that's very vulgar and attach it to him. We're not taking it anymore.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
You'll want to watch the Salem News Channel right this moment because Julie Hartman will be visible with me. I may not be a big lure, but she is. Anyway, Julie is in the studio. She is this remarkable young woman who actually sat in for me, the youngest person. I got to believe the youngest person ever do a national talk show. Now, Will and Amala, of course, are very young, but they do it together. But I think but as a solo, I think this was a first. You did it at 21. Were you nervous?
Of course I was a bit nervous, but once I got there, I was having so much fun that the nerves just faded away.
Is Sean part of the reason you were having fun?
Oh, Sean is a huge part of the reason. I just have to tell you what an extraordinary person he is. The day after I sub-hosted for you, I got a call from Salem and they asked me to sub-host for Mike Gallagher. And I called Sean and I said, I don't know if I should do this. Am I really ready for it? It's tomorrow at 6 a.m. And he said, I'll be there. And he got up, was at the studio for our call time at 5 a.m. and he helped me throughout the whole show, and it really just speaks volumes to who he is.
No, it says that he's a sexist. It does not speak volumes at all about his character. Give me a break. You're a pretty young woman. He showed up, okay? If Mike had a 6 a.m. call that day, say, call Will.
5 a.m. call.
Yeah, 5 a.m. Oh, definitely. Call Will twice.
That's Scott. He's a great one. That's Scott McConnell.
You thought I said Scott seriously.
I did. I was driving this morning to the dentist, and I was listening, and you said Scott, and I went, oh, God.
Did you laugh?
Of course I laughed.
I want you to know, it is not easy to make people going to the dentist laugh.
That's true.
So I get some credit for that. Having said that, for the record, being Mr. Transparent, I've asked this of my dentist. I like the cleaning of teeth.
I cannot believe, by the way, you're admitting this on air.
Yes, I don't hide anything. And so I've asked my hygienist or dentist, I've asked, how many people like this? And they said 1 out of 10. So I'm not alone, just for the record.
You're pretty alone, I got to tell you. I mean, I love my dentist. And by the way, she's a big Dennis Prager fan. So she's in our camp, if you will. But I got to say, I hate the act of going.
My beloved dentist in San Antonio sometimes plays my show while he drills. And I'm thinking about the guy sitting there. What if the guy doesn't like me? He's getting drilling and Prager.
That's right.
So, Julie, how are things at Harvard?
I got to tell you, things are really good. I'm so happy to be back. And it was not as bad as I expected coming back after having the summer job that I had. I definitely got a hard time, but I was expecting more people to actively come up to me, in the dining hall or in the classroom and call me all of the fun names that the left calls us, but that didn't really happen.
Are Harvard professors as woke as we think regular professors are?
I'm not sure. I've thought about that a lot recently. I think they are as woke, but I do think, especially in today's environment, because they're under fire for being so woke, they try to hide it.
Really?
Yes,
so
I have noticed that.
They're feeling the
I think so.
The backlash.
I think so. That should motivate people.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. It should motivate people. When we fight back, it has an impact.
It really does.
These people standing up at local school boards, that's very serious stuff that our side, the side for truth, justice, and the American way, which is, I'm laughing because that was the Superman motto, but that's what we are. So are you alone at Harvard?
No, I am actually not alone. And coming back to school, not only was it not as bad as I thought it would be, I actively found more conservatives than I expected to find. How
did you find them?
Well, there's an organization called the John Adams Society at Harvard, and it's
who's it named after? That was a joke. For all of you listening, that was a joke. Go ahead.
He says it with such a straight face,
That's
and
right.
there's like 2 seconds where I fall for it, but
okay.
He's just kidding. There's a society called the John Adams Society, and it's comprised of the few conservatives on Harvard's campus, and I found a real community there of support. But I also have to tell you, I had a good amount of people coming up to me in the dining hall, not to yell at me, but to say, hey, I watched your show, or I watched your segments, and you've got a point. I can't admit that to out loud, but I want to tell you to keep it up. So that should motivate people. I'm telling you, there are more people out there like us, even at a place like Harvard.
Okay, I think you're going to be hearing more from Julie in the coming year, but that's to be announced later. Julie, it is literally great to see you.
Thank you, and you.
Thank you. What did you say, Sean? Relief Factor, ladies and gentlemen, relieffactor.com, 800-500-8384. Last live ad of the year for them. I want to thank Relief Factor. I'd like to thank all my sponsors. So should you. At every speech that I give for any of my stations around the country, I tell them this country would not be where it is without talk radio. There are many great organizations. Nobody is doing better and has this entire period of time than talk radio. ReliefFactor.com, 800-500-8384.
Streaming on Salem Now.
We understand that a plane has crashed into...
The people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
biggest and most costly manhunt in U.S. history.
United States killed Osama bin Laden.
There are reports surfacing that Al-Qaeda has placed a $50,000 bounty on the heads of any U.S. Navy SEALs.
Nobody's going to survive that. There's nobody in that.
This is the single largest loss of life in Afghanistan in a single incident.
Most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
We discovered bullets in the bodies of the Navy SEALs. The military threw them away.
More likely than not, that supports a shootout on board.
Anybody out there, we have a fallen angel.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
There's about 57 Muslim states in the world. There's one Jewish state.
The massive ingathering of Jews in the last 150 years back to the land is absolutely unprecedented.
They say that there's no greater sign of redemption coming than the Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
As a Christian, I've always supported Israel's claim to the Holy Land. To me, the Palestinians were just getting in the way of God's plan.
300,000 Palestinians are unemployed.
In spite of all the years of conflict, there's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
The public would be outraged if they knew the truth.
Why do you think our politicians are not on the sidewalk right now talking to you?
Don't have no respect.
The old wall randomly turns into a guardrail, followed by miles of open border.
Human trafficking.
That journey is extremely dangerous.
The 7-year-old girl died in the desert.
From the country of India.
A great pillar of the community was killed by a man who had been deported at least twice.
This little urn contains the ashes of my son. His dreams cut short forever.
We're so worried about other countries' problems, and we don't even focus on our own.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
All right, everybody. Final live show of the year. I'll be on tomorrow with the best of. And Bill in Huntington Beach, California. Hello to you.
Hello, Dennis. So good to talk to you. You are a great preacher. You create these little statements of portable truth, I like to call them. And I love your statement, do good and have a good time doing it. That's a great target for life. But I got to meet you in the spring of 2016. I was doing some recording at KKLA. I pastor a church down here in Huntington Beach. But I visited your studio and got to meet you as the show was ending. And I asked if I could pray for you. Because I told you, I feel like you're one of the strongest voices in our culture right now for truth and sanity. And I just want to thank you. It's an honor to serve God in the same generation as you on this planet at the same time and virtually the same location.
Well, I'm sorry. What were you going to add? I'm sorry. What's going on here? I can't get you back on. There we go. What did you want to add? I'm sorry, Pastor.
Oh, there you go. I thought we were going to be in Israel together in October, November. I was there to do a hiking tour with some people that I was taking over, and then a traditional tour, and then I'd be on a conference tour with Joel Rosenberg as we do pastors' conferences.
Well, we are going
there.
to be, I am taking a group again in 2023, so it would be an honor for me to have you aboard. So thank you for the comments. I speak in churches more than any other single venue, I think. Maybe in conservative organizations, I guess. They would be the two most frequent. I guess they're tied. It's a very powerful thing. There was a young man in Prague, Czech Republic. I spoke last summer in Czech Republic and in Hungary. So I spoke to a group of young people in Prague, and a young man in his mid-20s, I'd say, comes over to me, and the others heard this. Said, I just want you to know, Ben Shapiro brought me to conservatism, and you brought me to God. And my response, the pastor made me think about this. And when I responded, I said, well, thank you so much. It's wonderful to hear. And I'd like you to remind everybody it was 2 Jews who did that. And they all cracked up, and it is important. Very early on in my life, I realized that the people I had most in common with were the people who shared my values, not my ethnicity, or even my religion. And by the way, that's true for many Christians. I don't care about ethnicity. I don't care about religious affiliation. I care about your values. That's everything. And that's why I have such warmth, and so it's so easy for me in Christian company. And they feel the ease with me. It's analogous. I want to remind you in that regard, my life's work is embodied in many ways in my work on the Bible. That's the key to having wisdom in your life. Where else are you going to get it? I'm serious. At college? From the New York Times? The 3rd volume of my Rational Bible series is coming out next year.
But before then?
I know. I'm headed there. So you can pre-order Deuteronomy. And before then, in March, is another work that I've worked on with the same commitment. It's the Rational Passover Haggadah. Most of you don't know the word Haggadah, but that's the name of the service for the Passover Seder. And it deals with the great issues of life, just like my Rational Bible series. Hugh Hewitt called my shows very sweet to recommend that as Lent approaches, this be the devotional reading, the Rational Passover Haggadah. What you looking for?
Well, you keep hearing a tapping. Are you tapping behind?
Oh, I might be. No. Ah, there we go. He was hearing noises, at which he was right, which are now gone. Anyway, you can pre-order the Rational Passover Haggadah. That too is up on the internet at PragerU, at DennisPrager.com or at Amazon. Whatever your religion or no religion, it will deeply affect your life. Okay, y'all. Lunel, that's a new name for me, in San Antonio, Texas. Hi, Lunel.
Hi, Dennis.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm very well,
We have met. Thank you. We have met. So you just probably don't remember my name because it's so odd.
Right.
But we met in San Antonio. I wanted to call and just say thank you to you because it seems like, well, this year, 2021 was not a good year for me. I lost my husband to cancer in July.
I'm so
And the holidays have been a little rough, but to be honest, New Year's is even rougher because I've got the prospect of looking at the whole new year without him. And so I wanted to call you because just listening to you and the gratitude that you have and the optimism that you have affects me greatly, and I appreciate everything that you do and say. And I'm sure there are millions of people who listen who feel the same way. I am positive of that.
Well, I'm all chilled. You gave me the chills. I want to say that hugging you is now on my bucket list. We'll be back.
Streaming on Salem Now.
We understand that a plane has crashed into...
The people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Biggest and most costly manhunt in U.S. history.
United States killed Osama bin Laden.
There are reports surfacing that Al-Qaeda has placed a $50,000 bounty on the heads of any U.S. Navy SEALs.
Nobody's going to survive that. There's nobody in that.
This is the single largest loss of life in Afghanistan in a single incident.
Most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
We discovered bullets in the bodies of the Navy SEAls. The military threw them away.
More likely than not, that supports a shootout on board.
Anybody out there, we have a fallen angel.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
There's about 57 Muslim states in the world. There's one Jewish state.
The massive ingathering of Jews in the last 150 years back to the land is absolutely unprecedented.
They say that there's no greater sign of redemption coming than the Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
As a Christian, I've always supported Israel's claim to the Holy Land. To me, the Palestinians were just getting in the way of God's plan.
300,000 Palestinians are unemployed.
In spite of all the years of conflict, there's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
All right, final segment. Oh, Leslie, our great screener who was on the show yesterday in the male-female hour. This is her husband. He's a major composer, Richard Friedman. Friedman, correct? I said Friedman, yeah. Oh, yes, his variation on Auld Lang Syne. That's correct. Well, let's see here. Let's go to Huntington Beach, California, and Mark. Hello, Mark.
Dennis?
Yep.
Hi, yeah. I listen to you all the time, and Happy New Year. And I get great advice from you
from all your wisdom, and I wish my brother would listen to you, because he's in another state, but he's starting to turn into a liberal, I think, because he doesn't have anybody around. He doesn't listen to people like you, and he's working among a bunch of liberals, and he's starting to act more like them. And I don't wear a mask unless I'm at work and I have to, but I walk into stores and go everywhere with no mask.
And he does? He wears one outside?
Sometimes he does, and he believes. I'm so surprised because he believes all the.
All right. Well, let me quickly, because I have very little time left. What you said is everything. They don't listen to us. We listen to them. We have no choice. I mean, we go to school. You hear people on the left. You watch movies. You hear people on the left. You hear or watch any major media. You hear people on the left. You go to college, you hear people on the left, but they don't hear us. Make a deal with your relatives or friends on the left. Listen to Dennis for a week, and I promise to listen to who you want for a month. Okay? Or something else that you find persuasive. Anyway, my friend, I end the year with the prayer that the next year be better. I have reason to hope, that's an important phrase. There's reason to hope that it will be a better year. As Americans awaken to, you know what, more than anything else? Gratitude for living in what remains the freest country in the world, despite the unprecedented attacks on our freedom. Thank you all for listening. It is an honor to be with you, as you often feel it is to be with me. The honor is mutual. God bless you all, and Happy New Year.